You play a football match without fans, you get nothing. It can be the greatest game in the world. If there are no people there to watch, it becomes nothing.
Into Johnson. Johnson. And a goal by Johnson. Larson. Oh, he's in. Henrik Larsson. That is sensational. Nakamura. He has done it. Is it not just typical?
The game is over. The Rebels have won. Champions, that's who we are.
What is happening, Toops? What is happening? Tuesday TikTok, it's the 11th of July. We've got Paddy, we've got James, we've got the viewers. Hope you're all doing well. I'll stop hitting this table and I'll talk normally. Guys, it's good to see you. I know that it's been a bit of a slow week with the news with Celtic. Indeed, you're probably more likely to get a breaking announcement from the BBC rather than Celtic at this rate, but we will plod on. Firstly, gentlemen, how yous doing?
Okay, glad to be back.
I'll take that. James, can you talk? Glad to be back.
All good, mate. As you say, it's not been a very eventful week aside for a few contracts, so hopefully we'll get a few signings in the door pretty soon.
Contracts and controversies. That's how the week has gone. To the viewers, hope you're all doing well. Hope you're enjoying the sunny July that we've had so far. It's been absolute pants, but hopefully it will improve. Jealous of anybody who has been abroad. I'm not in that camp. Maybe next year I'll be going abroad. Still to renew my passport. It's coming to an end. But enough about that. Let's talk about Celtic. So I guess the latest news is Hearts have cut the allocation for the away fans, but curiously enough, only Hibs are exempt, and they've cut it down to 650 as the away allocation. Now, in all honesty, the away allocation for Tynecastle has not been that high. I think it's been about, 1,000, between 1,000 and 2,000. It's still pretty low, but the numbers are dwindling down again. So 650. Paddy, what is Hearts' motivation behind that? What are they trying to achieve, especially sometimes when they can't even sell out their own stadium? Are they expecting a new influx of fans under the stewardship of Stephen Naismith?
I don't actually think it is Naismith, is it? I think it's that Frankie McAvoy that's the manager, and Naismith is like the...
Oh, was he the caretaker, right?
No, I think he got the job until the end of the season, but I think it's now kind of switched off. I know that I spend a lot of time talking about Hearts, but I think Frankie McAvoy's the manager now, and Naismith's like the head of development or something, something along the lines of that. So it's kind of switched round because McAvoy was his assistant, so there you are. But I've not really read too much about it, Gav, but I did see a wee kind of snippet when I was taking a nice toilet break at work today, which was about an hour's worth. And it was something, mate, a wise man once says, poop on work time, not on own time. The wise man, poop on work time, right? But I think it was something along the lines of they're wanting to, well, this is the official part, all right? They're wanting to cut allocation so that they can get more of their own fans in, get more money and try and bridge the gap between the top two and them. I would suggest that's a lot of shite because they're still going to be getting the same ticket money in, one would imagine. So what could it possibly be? It could only be the fact that, as Plunge alludes to there, yes, maybe, copying the what does that say? Copying the mob at Ibrox, I thought that says the model. It's quite petty again, isn't it? But these are these clubs, right, that depend on us. It's the clubs that hate us, that need us, and they need everything that we bring to the Scottish game. They need our finances, they need our exposure, they need us. If we were to walk away the route, they would be fucked. The other mob would put the game, they never get fucked, but we're a different kettle of fish. We're a whale in a goldfish bowl. We're dying to break out. You know what I mean? But all these fucking tadpoles are off feeding half our shite, and they need us. They need that there because they're starving, and now they're trying to squeeze us out, try to squeeze the fans out. I can only suggest it's because they don't like us. They don't like what our fans bring on a tempered Tynecastle evening. It's interesting anyway.
That explains it, Paul McFarlane. Thank you for that. Paddy, I did like your fish metaphor. I did appreciate that. Naismith needs to get his UEFA badge before he can be manager. So McAvoy is a caretaker till then. That does explain things. I think it's petty. And without...
Sorry, Gav, I think you're right, Paul, actually. I remember I saw this somewhere. I didn't know if it was true, but I think it was one of the ones like your Will Still guy for the French, is it a French team? Every kind of game he manages, the club gets a fine because he's not got his badges. So I think Naismith was getting the same. So that's obviously why that is. Sorry.
Not at all, mate. As you say, it's totally petty, and without digressing too much, know that Scottish football isn't the most marketable product right now, and things like this pettiness. And again, like, what if Celtic were to employ the same tactics against other teams as well? It's just, it's just one thing after another, and we're doing nothing to enhance the game. But James, probably expect nothing less. Well, I don't suppose you were surprised at that, but it would be a worrying trend if other teams continue to copy that as well, especially for the away support. We bring a fantastic away support, and whenever you watch these games, if you don't hear the Celtic fans, because we're always, more or less, we're always winning. So the home fans are rarely in full voice. It's always us. So the grounds are just going to sound like fucking graveyards if that's the case.
Aye, it's just said that is, in a nutshell, it is just petty. Obviously, there's been a few clubs previously that's kind of followed the same path. Kilmarnock, I think, was the first one to do it, and then obviously Rangers have done it at Ibrox. But see if they're going to kind of sell out their stadium, and that is the logic behind it, which I don't really think it is, because if they're leaving it the same for Hibs. But if they do sell it out, then fair enough. Like, if they sell it out in the long term and they do keep selling it out. But I mean, we've seen it at Rugby Park. They're playing in front of empty seats, and then when they're coming to Parkhead, they're bringing 2 buses at a push. So aye, it is just really, really petty. I think that's it in a nutshell.
I just don't get it though, because they know fine well that wherever we go, we bring a large following, and obviously they all buy tickets. So the tickets are being purchased, whether it's us or the supporters that come out the woodwork, because we're playing them. You know what I mean? A ticket's still a ticket getting sold no matter who's buying it. So
right. I think they've been messing about with their kind of seating and stuff like that. I don't know if it was the last game at Tynecastle or it was why the games mind they put their wee kind of ultras, I hate the term, but they put their ultras behind the goal, right behind the goal and all that. It doesn't really make any difference, but I think it is just petty.
I was reading that for Scottish Cup games, there is a mandatory minimum allocation that you need to allow for away fans. It's 20% of your stadium capacity. For European games, this might just be the Champions League, but I read for European games, it's a minimum of 5% of your stadium capacity. Reading the rules for league games in Scottish football, I think the term reasonable allocation is mandated by the SFA. Now, that isn't specific. So reasonable, you can easily pass off 650 is reasonable because there's no minimum, there's no maximum. So if the SFA aren't going to be specific, then I guess you're going to get teams exploiting that loophole, that rule. But I think they're doing it to shoot their own foot, because very rarely is it going to be a sellout at Tynecastle. It's sad, but we'll move on to that.
The only other explanation I could think of, if I was putting my heart seed on, which I don't actually have, but I'll imagine I've got one, is that generally when we go to Tynecastle, as I say, it's actually a good atmosphere because it's kind of hostile. It's a big game. Let's no be a bit bush. But I think we're potentially looking at what they are doing across the road in Govan, and they're thinking, right, if there's none of their fans in, or there's only 600 of their fans in, that should surely give our home fans the opportunity to kind of spur the team on, because it will be louder, it will get them going. Maybe that gives us an added edge on the pitch, you know what I mean? Because obviously players react to the crowd. So it could be that they'll just want to hear all the Hearts mob to try and possibly let that affect the pitch.
Aye, well, hopefully we'll beat them again 4 times next season, so there won't be any deviation from our record. I do love beating that team on their own pitch. And recent other news, Callum McGregor and Maida have signed new contracts. We'll focus on Calmac for the time being, but just before we finish, we thank Brennan. But they won't sell it out, and that's a problem, and totally in keeping with how really shite the Swine Castle rabble are, and have been for decades, and exactly like Aberdeen, Wee Hibs, and the other 2 Dundee clubs. I wonder what the solution is then to kind of keep them in tow.
The solution should be, well, the governing body dictates, and like you says that they do with the cups, right? Your away fans are allocated X amount, and you are not allowed to deviate away from that. You're not allowed to dictate. Because what's to say that every single club can't turn around and say, right, you're getting one ticket for the game? Is that the kind of fucking shithousery that is allowed here? Because if you can go for, say, 1,000 to 650 or 4,000 to 700, where does that stop? Is there a minimum? Because I think that is the minimum, isn't it? Like 650. I was obviously being a bit fucking facetious with a one ticket, but like, you can't surely just chop and change that whenever you feel like it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's fucking moronic. Where else have you ever heard this happening? What other league? What other country? What other game of football? Unless it's been UEFA saying, right, it's a stadium closure, or there's maybe been fucking reworks going on at a stadium or something. I've never heard of this happening. Right? We're just going to give you the minimum amount of tickets. Who the fuck do you think these are?
Yeah,
you use all the tickets and you turn up. Fuck yous.
I know these clubs need us more than we need them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's difficult to be.
By the way, plunge 1,000,000% wagon it, 1,000,000%. Our glass ceiling is fucking. We've hit that in this league, in this country. As I say, they need us. We don't need them. We need to expand. We need to grow our wings. Like a Virgil van Dijk, you knew fine well that he was too good for Scottish football. Well, guess what? Celtic are too good for Scottish football. They hate us, they despise us, but yet they can't do without us, because we are the ones. We bring in the bread. We bring it in. These cunts feed off the yeast. Like fucking mold, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Scum. No other clubs, but a good bit of them.
I don't agree with that. Shall we move on to Callum McGregor? McGregor has signed a 5-year deal. He'll be a player at Celtic until 2028, which seems a long time away. So it's earned. Whenever Scott Brown left Parkhead, we wondered who the new captain would be, myself included. I was one of the people in the camp who never thought that Callum McGregor had that type of leadership ability. But, you know, people had said it, Kieran Tierney had said it, that Callum McGregor was definitely going to be a future captain. So he's taken that mantle and he's thrived. He's thrived beyond our imaginations. So he's earned his new contract extension. As I said, he'll be with us for another 5 years. How integral is he right now? Whenever we've got other stars who we talk about. So this is a good point. Well, I would like to think it's a good point. Whenever you talk about our main players, our main Celtic stars, you talk about Jota, who's now left. You talk about Kyogo. You talk about Cameron Carter-Vickers. And even people now, their eyes are drawn to Alistair Johnson, who, you know, he's taken to it like a duck to water. Not always many people talk about Callum McGregor. It's a bit of an unfashionable player to talk about. He plays a kind of defensive playmaker role. He doesn't really grab the headlights as such, but without him, you would notice a massive difference. So, James, asking you, what is the impact that he makes? Do we understate it? Do we overstate it? And how well earned is this 5-year contract extension?
Oh, massively well earned. I think it's very, very understated in the team, probably underrated as well. He kind of flies under the radar for the most part. I know there was a wee spell last year where he maybe kind of tailed off a wee bit, but most weeks he's a kind of 8 or 9 out of 10, and then when he does drop off, he's maybe a kind of 7. So he's still getting the pass marks. It's just like a wee kind of noticeable drop off, but he's still obviously really good. As you say, the role he plays, it's kind of unfashionable. He's not getting as many goals as maybe he once did. He's not getting the assists. He's obviously not kind of a skillful player. He's not very eye-catching. But it is the kind of players, obviously, that you need in the team. And obviously, throughout history, as you say, guys like Scott Brown and things like that. Very, very understated. And I think Scott Brown as well went through a phase where you probably notice him more when he isn't playing as to how much a vital role he has in the midfield.
Mm-hmm. Paddy, you talk about the transition of Scott Brown, his playing style, whenever Brendan Rodgers took over, and some people had been writing Scott Brown off at that point, maybe perhaps the media than Celtic fans. That's a debate for another day. But Brendan Rodgers saw the potential, or saw not so much the potential, but what he could do with Scott Brown, what he could eat out of him, and how he could perhaps modify his role. We saw that happen with Scott Brown. Do you see any transition with Callum McGregor, or do you think it will just be the same again? He's not going to run more. He's approaching the 30 mark now. He's not going to run more. So I don't see a change in the mobility of his playing style. So is there any kind of changes in his role, or do you think he'll just get further and further, not advanced, but backwards?
No, I'm 100% desperate for that to happen. And I think the fact that he signed a contract extension to 2027, you would have to look at how you get the longevity out of his career, right? Because there's no point in saying, oh, but what if he leaves, what if this and that? Callum McGregor's going to retire here. I don't care what anybody says. That the guy's here, he loves the club, he's a local laddie, he's fucking 2 minutes, well, he comes for 2 minutes along the road for me. There's no reason for him to leave. He loves it here. Number one, you've heard everything coming from Rodgers. He was one of the first players, if not the first, that he spoke to, and he spoke about the time that he spent having a conversation with Callum, and it was basically that he could see the drive, he could see the determination, he could see the tenacity in his eyes when he was talking about, not just continuing the success, but getting even better. And that only comes with experience, that comes with passion. Do you know what I mean? And you've got everything there in abundance with McGregor. So if you're going to extend his contract to 2027, he's just turned 30, I think. Is that right? 29th? I think he is. I think he's just turned 30.
He is.
So to get the best out of Callum McGregor, you drop him back deeper, right? There's no reason or need for him to be running about fucking covering 2 and 3 positions. Let him sit at the back, let him marshal the deeper midfield, and that's not in a sense of running about and fucking tackling here and there. But what Callum McGregor can do is he's got a fantastic range of passing, and all his movement that he does, it brings certain players into positions and it drags certain players out of positions. I'm talking about the opposition, obviously. But again, his range of passing is fantastic. If we want to play that kind of possession-based game, which Rodgers loves, there's no better player to sit in front of the defence than Callum McGregor, because he's excellent with his back to opponents. So if he's collecting the ball for defence, he controls it well, he guards it well, he turns well, he can see the full picture, he can see the movement, he can see the pass, he can pass short, he can pass wide, he can pass long, he can pass back, he can do anything. As far as I'm concerned, he's probably one of the best players that Scotland has ever produced, and one of the best players that Celtic have ever produced. So for us to get the best out of him, we need to just let him come back and just play his game. Let guys like Hatate, let guys like O'Reilly, let guys like fucking hopefully there's Bruiser coming into midfield. Let them go and do all the running about. Let them do the chasing, because there you go. There's the perfect fucking the perfect name there, Pirlo. That's all he done, and he only got better as he got older. You know what I mean? Because they started to drop him back. He started off as a winger, I'm sure, and then he started, and then he went into like your number 10, and then he was the midfielder, and then all of a sudden he was getting released by Milan, and then he ended up with a big move to Juventus, and they just played him deeper. They says, you are the master with the ball. Callum McGregor is easily like a Scottish version of Pirlo, and he can do it, and he's done it under Rodgers. One of the best games I've ever seen Callum McGregor was against Hibs at Celtic Park, and it was Rodgers' first season, and he basically played in front of the defence. He didn't run about, he just sat and he collected the ball and he made everything tick. The quarterback role, as you said, that was probably well defined in that game, and I thought, wow, this guy's brilliant. This guy is really, really brilliant. He's grew levels, and I think Rodgers and Callum McGregor will get the best out of each other.
Right. I agree with a lot of what you've said. Now, you did say, I don't know if you went a wee bit far here, but we'll put it under the microscope. You said that he's one of the best players that Celtic have ever produced, and Scotland too. So, someone made the comment that he's on the trajectory of being the most decorated player in Scotland's history, domestically, of course. So, in terms of a captain, James, how does McGregor compare to past Celtic captains, and also in terms of his footballing ability? So if we were to kind of think off the top of our heads of the greatest midfielders to play for Celtic, so I think McStay is going to be one of them, Bobby Murdoch, Bertie Auld, and even under Martin O'Neill, you had the trio of Lambert, Petrov and Lennon. And of course, Scott Brown, let's not forget him. So where does McGregor rank against them in terms of playing style? If you were to, talk about our greatest midfielders, where does he get to? And also captains, so where do you rank him?
He's going to be right up there. A lot of the players you've mentioned, obviously they're kind of Lennon and Brown exempt for it, but a lot of them are more kind of forward-thinking midfielders. Obviously a bit more eye-catching in terms of goals, skill, things like that. But McGregor, what he does, and I know I've said it on here before, I know we're talking about him maybe kind of dropping back and playing that Pirlo role. 100% he can do that, but I just don't see the need for him to be kind of gone into that role just yet. I get through time, maybe his legs will kind of start to go and there's a reason for it, but I still think he's a box-to-box midfielder. I still think he can score the goals. I still think he can get forward, hang about the edge of the box. He's done it a few times last season. I know, obviously, he was playing a slightly different role in the team, but I don't quite yet subscribe to that being his role in the team. I think there's still so much more that he can give to the team, kind of going forward as well. I know, but we're kind of talking as if he's maybe slowing down, his legs are going a wee bit, but I get he's obviously 30 now, but he's still playing about fucking 500 games a season the way it's going the new way.
And he's going to continue to play the games, right? And I get what you're saying, like, maybe people will think that if you drop deeper, it's almost like getting into the retirement for a midfielder. But at Disney, I think what happens is you utilise what he's best at. There's no reason for him to be bombing about and playing in three different roles, because that's what he's been doing. He's been the box-to-box midfielder. He's been the wide midfielder. He's been the central midfielder. He's been the defensive midfielder. He's been the covering midfielder. He's been the one making the runs, this and that, as well as being the captain. So he's got all these dual roles. He's as good as a Swiss Army knife, you know what I mean? But
he's also played left back, which is really hard to come by,
Correct. But there's no reason for him to be bombing up and down, especially if you're wanting him to play the 30, 40, 50 games. I mean, there was last season, Postecoglou says guys like Joe Hart, Callum McGregor, etc., would not be playing every game because we want to keep the best of them. We want to do that. And it never happened. He was talking shite. He spoke absolute shite. That was a lie. Maybe not so much a lie, but he never done it. What he said he was going to do. Continue to play and play and play and play. And it was all a pressing game. And I think towards the tail end of that, McGregor started to falter. No falter. You've only seen the best of his performances. So why not get the best of his performances? Let him sit back and just do what he's got to do. Let younger guys like Hatate or O'Reilly, let them go and run the legs out. McGregor doesn't need to do that. He'll do that when he needs to in the game. Do you know what I mean? If he needs to burst forward, he'll do it. But there's no point in him and being like in three different positions and covering three different positions all through the game. Just let him do there. Sit back, deeper. Marshal the game where he can see the whole pitch, because you can see it. You can see what's happening when you're deeper. You can see the opposition make their movement. You can see the tactical changes that comes in during games, because that's what happens now. It's all transitions. Let him fucking dictate to his players, right? You're doing this, you're doing that, blah blah blah, and let him play his own game and make the best his passing technique.
I agree with you. I just think for me, and as I say, look, when he drops half, he's a 7 out of 10 instead of a kind of 8 or 9, 100%. And I know he's played the role he's played for a wee while now, but even within games, I just still think that he's best fit is played on the front foot, driving forward. See, for me, more so obviously in Europe, going into the Champions League, the midfield three for me, I would like to sign, as you say, like a big bruiser, and then have McGregor beside them. So have your big bruiser as your kind of sitting kind of hatchet man, basically. Have McGregor beside them as your kind of box to box, and in front of them maybe push Hatate on one, or stick O'Reilly in there, and have that, because that's kind of solid, but also got legs and like a goal threat as well. That would be the ideal scenario for me, as opposed to having McGregor kind of as your sitter, so to speak.
A couple of things I would like to say, not so much in his playing style. His injury record is phenomenal. Phenomenal. The other thing is how he's acquitted himself as a Celtic player. I know that we don't really have many Rockets who represent us, unlike the other mob, but he's always, if people talk about the ambassador and things like that, a role model, he really is that. And sometimes people don't get enough credit for that. Injury record, it's hard to kind of overstate how important that is, because if you've got an influential player like McGregor has, then you notice a difference when he's out the team. And that sometimes people get more credit because of that. But McStay, he had so many injuries in his career, but Callum McGregor's never had that, and we sometimes tend to overlook a player's impact whenever they're a constant, whenever they're always there. Sometimes people say that familiarity can breed contempt, but McGregor's been a brilliant servant to Celtic. And somebody said it there that McGregor's story is still being written, and that's very true. At the age of 30, his legs aren't going. There's no signs of that. In fact, even in that Scotland game, whenever you saw the Scotland against Spain, do you remember it? There was it was almost in stoppage time. I wasn't even watching the full game. I switched on near the end, and McGregor ended up bursting away for one of his markers past the midfield, running through into defence. That was near the end of the game, and this is a player who plays practically every game of the season. I used to wonder about that, if it would take its toll on McGregor at some point, playing every. He used to have that accolade where he played more games than any other European player, and I was thinking, what are we doing to this boy? We're running him into the ground, but he has shown no signs of deteriorating. I'm still not a big fan of that accolade. I'd prefer that not to be the case, just to give him a rest sometimes. But if he doesn't need a rest, then, there'll be people who know more about it than me. We've got sports science. But I guess what I'm trying to say is he's been a brilliant servant for Celtic. And, yeah, in terms of regressing into the midfield, playing deeper, until he shows signs of wear and tear and slowing down, then perhaps we don't need to make that tactical change. We can still play on the front foot. Sorry. And he is super fit. He's very fit. Aye. So that's McGregor. But yeah, captain material. So how would you compare him, James? So the likes of Roy Aitken, Paul McStay, Lennon, Lambert, people like that, Scott Brown. He doesn't seem like a barker, but he must have an aura about him. I think Joe Hart, whenever Joe Hart joined the club, and obviously Joe Hart has seen a lot in football, I think he said that McGregor was the first player to speak to him, and he told him about the club and such, is what you would expect from a captain. But I think Joe Hart was impressed with his character. So what do you think of him as a captain and how he ranks to others?
I mean, he's got to be right up there. Obviously, in terms of the captaincy, I know he's not necessarily been captain for so long, but just looking at his career as a whole, obviously, I agree with what Paddy said earlier. I think he'll retire here. The amount of games he's played, the amount of things he's won, and even since people were questioning him, when he got the armband, and he's took to it like a duck to water. He's took to it like a duck to water. For what it counts, I know what we see in the kind of wee YouTube videos that they put out and the wee Twitter snippets and things like that. He's always there, front and centre, doing exactly what you would expect a captain to be doing. And as I say, I don't think anybody has come out and had a bad word to say about him. He's obviously super professional. As you say, apart from his fucking Phantom of the Opera mask last year, I don't really remember him being out for any sustained period of time. So in terms of ranking him, you'd have to say he's right up there, but I'm going to flip that back to yous. And if gun to your head you had to pick one, Callum McGregor or Scott Brown?
Okay, what Scott Brown are we talking about? Or just talking in general? Like his evolution as a Celtic player? Or?
Aye, just in general, just he's kind of comparing, I know obviously McGregor's a bit younger, but comparing them both, Scott Brown's career is to where Callum McGregor's at in his career just now.
I'm trying to think, if we had a must-win game tomorrow and we've got a good starting 11, but one of that 11 has to be McGregor or Brown, who would I take? Maybe I could dodge the question and say, well, it depends on the complexion of the midfield, James.
No, I think Callum McGregor's probably more reliable in the sense that kind of injuries permitting and things like that. He's probably the better all-round player in terms of technical ability, but Scott Brown, I'd say the better kind of dig. That maybe doing Brown a disservice. I think I would just in the air go for McGregor.
Yeah, I'm just going to change subject for 2 seconds and I'll be back on. We've got clearly an England fucking lover in the house, Mr. Bushby. Welcome. We can slide Scottish football. You can't, you prick. So fuck up. By the way, if you're going to come on and slaughter Scottish football, being an Englishman or a lover of English football, you might as well fucking speak proper English. You daft cunt. He grew up in English football. Fuck off.
McGregor, definitely the technically more proficient.
You cunt.
As you said, Brown, he had more dig in him. Who could do it? Like, I know that like Brown, he had suitors in England at like Newcastle. Brendan Rodgers wanted to sign McGregor for Leicester. Like, both of them could have done it in English football, but that's not the question. Right, if McGregor had a physically capable midfield, then I'd probably take McGregor because of his technical capabilities. Yeah, just edges it.
Paddy's on a sponsored silence.
Oh, sorry, mate. I didn't know you guys were talking to me. Sorry.
Who are you going for, McGregor or Brown?
Oh, it's a horrible question. That is a horrible question. I think if Callum McGregor manages to retire Celtic and sees out the rest of his career at a very, very good level, I'm never going to live that down, am I?
Aye, mate, you've your fucking finger for Prince Charles.
Aye, I'll be on my fucking gravestone. Father, husband, the guy that blocks studs. No, I think if we're going to go the course, I'm going to predict that Callum will surpass Scott Brown. And again, it's a shame. I guess it's a hypothetical. It's a bit of young fun. It's young fun. Just because I read that comment though. A bit of fun posing that question, but it's a wee bit unfair because it's a generational thing. It's different teams and all that. But I'm going to predict that at the end of Callum McGregor's time, compared to the end of Scott Brown's time, it'll be Callum McGregor on top.
By the way, I heard a wee thing on Twitter. So Fabrizio Romano, the guy who, he's like a ball here away from telling you like impending doom, bad news, or he could make your day. So he made a wee comment about Jeremy Frimpong, a familiar face at Parkhead. So Frimpong has been at Leverkusen for a few years now. But he said that Frimpong has recently changed agents. And he said that Leverkusen were they were open to offers back in January, and at that time he was roughly about 20 to 25 million. Romano now is reporting that his asking price now is between 30 to 35 million. So you'd imagine that there's been chatter in the grapevine that Leverkusen might be open to offers. We've heard that Man U might be looking at him, amongst other people, no doubt. Do any of you guys remember what the reported sell-on clause is for Frimpong? Because if we're talking 30 to 35 million, that is a one hefty payday for us.
I think it's 30.
Yeah, I thought it was 30 as well. Right?
So, and by the way, kudos to Peter Lawwell for that. Listen, that's the kind of contract that he insisted on putting on players that we were selling. So that's what you've got to do in modern football. You've got to secure your asset even after they go. I mean, that's just the way it works now. And for us to get 30% of Frimpong's future sell-on fee is going to be a fantastic piece of business. It's like sitting in your arse doing nothing and getting paid for it. You know what I mean? We've had the pleasure of Frimpong's time. He was successful. He was a decent player. He moved on for a decent fee. Again, he was one of these players that was kind of mentioned as wanting to leave, so he left. We sold him, and we put a big percentage on it. And now he's going to go kind of to the top, on the trajectory to the top. And if he goes for anything other for 35 million plus, you're laughing. Do you know what I mean? Because that pays for a new player. That pays for a new Frimpong. Frimpong.
Who would you rather? Alice or Johnson at his best?
Johnson.
Or Frimpong?
Johnson.
James?
You're probably going to sell Johnston for about £2 million, but I don't care. He's going to smash somebody. We Frimpong couldn't fucking smash a ping pong.
I'd go Johnson at all. I'd pay Johnson all day.
Yeah. See that game that he gets sent off against the Rotten Mob, the cup final, the one where Julian scored the winner. We would have lost that game without Frimpong because he was our only outball. But because our centre forward for the majority of the game was
Lewis Morgan.
Lewis Morgan playing up front. Was it Lewis Morgan?
Oh, Mickey Johnson.
Oh,
sorry, Mickey Johnson.
It was because he missed a sitter, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Like 88th minute or something, 87th minute.
Frimpong was our outball down that right wing. You know, we just gave it to him, and he would make those yards. Without him, I know that he gets sent off. He gave away the penalty, which Fraser Forster saved, but he was so influential in that game. It was unreal. Right, okay, so either way, if he does go, and he's at a good age, but, you know, 30% of 30 to 35 million, it's going to be tasty. In other news, Conor Hazard has left to join Plymouth. It's not for a record-breaking fee, of course, but Conor Hazard, I'm sure we all remember him, for the final game of the quadruple treble, and it was the game against Hearts, which laboured into a penalty shootout. Now, Conor Hazard had a mixed day, shall we say. He gave away at least one goal. He was at fault for at least one goal.
Two clear as day, mate. 2 goals were his fault.
He gave me the fear, man. He gave me the fear. But, you know, if you're going to have an influence, you're going to have a memorable game, like his family must have been watching in their living rooms with their heart in their mouth, just thinking, praying, don't disgrace the family. But, of course, he saved at least one penalty in the penalty shootout, and we won in the end. Christopher Ayer got the final goal in the penalties. But what do you remember of that final? It seems like so long ago. So much things have happened at Celtic since then.
It was fucking terrible.
Dreadful. Was it the final? I think it was the semi-final actually, wasn't it? That Christie scores an absolute topper. I'm sure. I think it was the semi-final. But were we not 2-0 up or something, or 3-1 up or something like that in that final? It was. You thought it was in the first half or pretty early on, and you thought it was going to be plain sailing. But I think that was around about that time. I think we were the only 3 in Scotland that probably didn't get a game in goals for Celtic at that time.
Hazard,
unfortunate, but also a sadly appropriate surname.
See, the thing is, the boy came on and he played in a game, right? He played in a cup final. made 2 horrendous errors, and I think that's what actually led to them getting the equaliser as well, Jamesy. But things happen, and he's went out as a hero. He's wrote his name into Celtic, the history books, because he was the keeper in the game that secured the quadruple treble. So that is what it is. Good luck to him. He was never going to get a game here regularly. I think he had a good season on loan at Helsinki.
Aye.
Yeah,
he's
they won
himself
the
the show one day, and he's got to move to England. So it's good for him. He'll probably end up at fucking West Ham in about 3 seasons or something. So all the best to him. But, catch you.
Right, on this day feature, I had 2 options. So the 11th of July, we had 2 options. Now, most recently, it was in the year 2000, and there'd be valid accusations against me to say 2000 is not old enough to say on this day. But in 2000, Celtic signed Chris Sutton from Chelsea for a club record of 6 million. The alternative was Charlie Tully, who was born in 1924, the 11th of July. We have spoken about Charlie Tully for the On This Day segment, so I thought I would give him a rest and talk briefly about Chris Sutton. And thankfully, Chris Sutton is somebody who I think for most Celtic fans, you're going to remember him. But club record 6 million deal, you know, sometimes people they think about, should we be pushing the boat out so much for him? But Chris Sutton, what was your thoughts back then? So he did it at Blackburn. First off, Norwich. I can't remember who he played for prior to Norwich, but he had a successful time at Norwich. He signed for Blackburn, partnered with Alan Shearer, and they scored a barrel ton of goals. SAS, indeed. He wins the league, and that was during a time of Man U dominance. He goes to Chelsea, and he was a flop. I don't know if he scored any goals. He might not have scored any goals.
No, he scored a couple.
Did he? Well, I think they bought him for roughly about 10 million. It didn't work out.
2 goals, I think. Anyway, scored a couple of goals.
Fair dues. So it didn't work out for him, but we signed him. And he, whether you want to call him a legend or not, tell me if you do think he's a legend, tell me if you don't think he's a legend. But either way, the partnership that he had with Henrik Larsson was something to behold. And Henrik Larsson has always said that he was one of his favoured players. If he did he has done a favoured 11, Henrik Larsson. And I think the 3 Celtic players that he's chosen, he chose a defender and a midfielder, and his strike partner was Chris Sutton. You imagine that?
And on this day, fuck off.
Can you remember who Henrik Larsson named as his favoured Celtic defender and favoured Celtic midfielder in his top 11 of all time?
Mialby?
No. Mark Reaper is defender and Lupo as midfielder. So, of course, he had Henrik Larsson. Sorry, he had Chris Sutton for that. But anyway, Chris Sutton, legend, not a legend, but a fantastic player for Celtic. Scored a barrel load of goals. He was a scalper against the Rotten Mob. And in current news, he will be joining Sky Sports. So he's going to mix it up with he's going to be mixed up on Sky Sports, so he's going to try and level things up, which is good because Andy Walker has left and he was a prick. So we've got a good face. But there you go. Anything you'd like to say about Chris Sutton for On This Day feature? Give us your contributions. That was a funny handshake there, Paddy.
Where's the thumb?
Let's see this one. Word. It's a family show. Enough.
I like Sutton. Obviously, you're a wee bit older than me, so he was in my kind of growing up Celtic. Well, certainly when he signed anyway, I would have been 7. So growing up, it was always obviously Larsson, but then right behind him, it was Stan Petrov and Chris Sutton. I absolutely loved him. He's a legend all day, every day in my book up here.
Aye, he's the fucking captain in your league, mate. Mate, Chris Sutton was a tremendous sign. Martin Hughes' first signing on it. Aye. His first signing. And obviously the fact that we sold Viduka to Leeds for 6 million helped bring that signing on. If you just look at his contributions for the start, he was everything that Martin and he needed and everything that he wanted in this team. He realised that we were getting dominated physically by the rotten mob. The kind of free-flowing football that was promised under Barnes and Dalglish never came about, although had a great start. Let's not forget that. And they just did what they usually do, the cluggers, the dominance, whatnot. So Martin O'Neill had to put a physical representation of the dominance that he wanted to put on the park and on the league by putting physically dominating players in that team. And big Chris Sutton probably epitomises that because his contributions to Celtic all the years was fantastic. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's a legend, but he's certainly an iconic Celtic player. And everything that he did within his time at Celtic, top class. You can't decry it at all. He played striker, he played defender, he played midfielder as well later on at times. But the one that you said, Gav, about Larsson, obviously that was the iconic partnership. Larsson wouldn't have been as good for Celtic if he wasn't playing beside Chris Sutton. There's no doubts about that. And I'm not saying that Larsson had been shite or anything, but Chris Sutton made Henrik Larsson a better player because of that connection. You had the big tall guy. Big Chris Sutton was always known for his aerial presence, his aerial prowess. His heading was top class. His ball retention was top class. The way he would back into players and control the ball was excellent. And of course, he was a fantastic finisher. So I would love nothing more than to see another player of that ilk coming to Celtic, and I would love to see the times of the two guys up front coming back into fruition. And I tell you what, I'm really looking forward to. Actually, I won't be paying for Sky. Let's not do that. But I'm looking forward to seeing the dodgy streams of Chris Sutton absolutely tearing Chris Boyd a new arsehole, because he's done it with Alec Ray, he's done it with clowns like that, Derek Johnson. Done it on BT Sports, which is changing to TNT Sports, and now he's got his big move to Sky Sports. So beware, Chris Boyd, your arse is getting handed to you on a plate, you fucking nugget.
Do you like the report that he's got with Robbie Savage?
Who?
Chris Sutton.
Yeah, sorry. Robbie Savage is. Some people say that Chris Sutton's a pantomime villain, right? But Robbie Savage is just a prick. He's a thick prick, right? He's got the brains of a fucking tennis racket. And he's simply there to be the pantomime villain to Chris Sutton. That's his claim to fame. He's there to say everything the opposite of what Chris Sutton does. So if Chris Sutton promotes Celtic or talks positively about Celtic, Robbie Savage is going to talk about Rangers. He's going to talk about this. He's going to talk about that. And yes, Craig White, Mr. Legend, the dick stick.
Yeah.
Robbie Savage, that is.
There was a couple of quotes here for Chris Sutton, and he said, if I could actually go back to any period in my life and just relive it over and over again, I'd go back to when I first signed for Celtic under Martin O'Neill. And you remember that quote? See, for the I wish I had a thick, but see for our podcast for the opening sequence when we've got like quotes from like Jock Stein and Ange, which will be edited out soon, by the way. There was one quote which I was one quote I was desperate to get, and it was that quote for Chris Sutton. He said it in an interview, and he said, "I'm here to put Rangers in their place." I know that he said it in an interview, and I spent hours and hours on the internet trying to find that quote, the audio of it, but I couldn't locate it because I wanted to fit it into that open sequence for our podcast.
I will find it for you.
Get the feelers out, people. The other quote was for Chris Sutton. He said, "Celtic was the best, most enjoyable football of my career. Every day I would wake up looking forward to training, looking forward to working with Martin, John Robertson and Steve Walford." So as like many other Celtic fans, all we can do is kind of say thanks for the memories. He'll always definitely rank as great and highly favoured player for all of us, I'm sure.
Okay. Can I just give a wee anecdote just at the tail end of that, just to answer a comment there for Patrick McLaughlin. He had pet pigs, Big Sutton, didn't he? Aye, I think he was actually Fae, the Norwich end, the Norwich area, sorry, and he came through the ranks, Gav. So obviously Norwich is kind of countryside, so Sutton's almost got the farmer about him, you know what I mean? And he did have pet pigs and whatnot. But one of my best pals growing up, great lad.
Was a farmer?
No.
Was a pig.
No. Great guy. His mum, who's an absolute diamond, she was actually Chris Sutton's nanny, caregiver, if you want to call that, to his kids. And throughout all the time, he was at Celtic. And I know a lot of people maybe say he's quite arrogant or he's a great-faced cunt or he's moany, this and that. She had nothing but kind words to say about him whenever she was in his company, obviously, which was a daily thing, which was kind of transactioning the kids back to him. But no, she says he was a fantastic guy, great to work for. Him and his wife, pair of lovely, lovely people. Couldn't be any nicer. So there you are, a wee bit of inside knowledge.
It was really sad how his Celtic career ended. Strachan took over, and obviously Strachan had a job to change the squad, to out with the old, in with the new. So it was sad, the departure. It always happens whenever you've achieved so much with a club and a new manager comes in, a new regime, a new mandate, and the old legends kind of go out, without any fanfare, without any great farewell. It's really regrettable how that happens. Happened to more than one anyway. So he moved to Villa after an injury hit spell at Birmingham. He was reunited with Martin O'Neill at Villa, and then to Birmingham City, where he ended his playing days. And he had that eye injury, which was unfortunate. But either way, a great player. Brains of tennis racket. Is that a black hab dead compliment?
Good one. I'll return that one to you.
I love that.
Serve that up to him on a plate. New balls, please.
So, guys, I told you about this one earlier on. Unpopular Celtic opinions. It was it might go down like a rather poorly, rather badly. It might be ill received by the viewers. Gav, do you ever smile? No, mate. Sometimes, mate. Sometimes. If you tell me a funny joke, I might. Do you remember my joke for last week?
By the way, Mr. Floyd, Gav is a jovial character, always smiling, but like any new father, he's fucking knackered. So leave him alone.
I don't smile, mate. You're right. I don't smile. You've got me there. Right. Celtic unpopular opinions. Do you have any? Now, I think I've got more than a few. I think sometimes whenever you try to kind of sit on the fence at times, this is a racket tonight. Sometimes I think you try to kind of play devil's advocate. Sometimes that's what I do anyway. And I think I've had a few unpopular opinions. I remember I said one time about Jota before he left, and I said Jota isn't good enough to play for the top teams in Europe because of his lack of physicality. That was one unpopular opinion. I do have quite a few more. Smiling is overrated. Do you remember that? Do you remember that meme on Twitter? And somebody pasted a photo. Somebody posted a photo of themselves, and somebody replied back to say, "Why are you not smiling?" And then they replied back to say, "There's nothing to smile about in my life."
No. Right, we'll fling this one to Thomas Burns. Lovely name, by the way. What's the difference between a chickpea and a red bean? So try and type your answer quickly, please. Oh, by the way, just on the tennis thing, what time does Andy Murray go to his bed at?
When?
About 10ish.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Is that no fucking James Bond's? Fuck it, doesn't matter.
That took me half a second longer than what I needed to get that joke. I'm disappointed with
There
myself.
we go. What's the difference between a chickpea and a red bean? I've never had a red bean on my face.
That's not bad, actually.
Mr. Burns, this is the place for you. We love the fucking jokes like that, man. Brilliant.
Right. Okay, I'll start it off with unpopular Celtic opinions. See, for the 10 in a row season, I really hate the fact that people try to take away, that people try to downplay it and say that, well, there was no fans and that's why the Rotten Mob managed to win it. And I hate the fact that it's almost like making out that they were playing with no pressure. We had the same pressure as them in that regard. I know that we were trying to win 10 in a row, but we had, in my opinion, we had the better players to do it. I hate the fact that people make up excuses. I hate that fact. Some people might disagree with me and say that all the pressure was on us. I know that we had to win 10 in a row, but there was a lot of pressure on Rangers at the same time. They had to stop us. Think of the pressure that we had when we stopped their 10 in a row under Wim Jansen. So I hate the fact that people use that as an excuse that there was no fans. It was COVID season. They played in the same conditions as what we did. Not that I'm looking to give credit to them. I just don't like using that as an excuse as a Celtic fan. That's just me.
Nah, I'd agree with that. And obviously, Lennon's in the paper fucking pretty much on a daily basis using COVID as the excuse. And it would have played into it, but it would have played into it for every single team in the country. No, just Celtic and Rangers. So much of the blame. So much of the blame. That's no fucking a tennis pun, though. So much of the blame for that season just lies solely and squarely with Neil Lennon. The wingers, the signings that we made, we all came out of that window when we signed Duffy, Laxalt, whoever else, I can't even remember after that made, but we all came out of that window saying, oh.
No, keep going, I'll get up.
No, we all came out of that window saying it was going to be excellent, and then Laxalt on paper was a good signing. Laxalt, even when he first came into the team, I thought looked decent, and they seemed to lose all ability over the space of a month or so, and we've asked Shane Duffy to play fitba as opposed to just fucking heedle the ball away he's facing. So for me, so much of the blame lies at Neil Lennon's door for that. And then I fucking hate John Joe Kenny, and I feel as if I bring him up every week, but genuinely one of the worst players I've seen at Celtic, given the amount of game time that he got. It was terrible. I'll never forget the game at Parkhead against Rangers. He's at the halfway line, he just boots the ball out for a corner under absolutely no pressure at all. Genuinely awful one.
Paddy, do you have one?
This one's probably going to be a tiny wee smidgen controversial. I think I've actually spoken about this before, but seeing as you've put me on the spot, I think I would rather Celtic have beaten Basel to get into the Champions League than get to Seville.
Can we just say you're wrong? Can we just say you're wrong and move on? Is that allowed?
No, because it's.
I mean, I appreciate
you. Listen, you've heard your say. I'll have my say.
I appreciate your opinion, but it's just wrong.
Well, listen, again, Seville was a fantastic run. We had some great memories, but I was at the game in Basel, right? I was at the game, and not for 1 second did I walk out of that game and go, thank fuck we get beat there. Gutted that we never got into the Champions League. Gutted.
What if that Champions League campaign, what if we got into the Champions League, but it was the same as last season where we didn't do too well?
No, again, I understand how incredible the journey to Seville was, but again, we only got there because of failure. And tell me one Celtic supporter who is happy with failure. And again, put your heads back into the time when we were actually playing in that game. As I say, I was at it. I was fucking gutted all the way up to Switzerland. There was not one person walking out of that stadium at that time that was happy. Even if you were getting to, even if somebody walked out and says, "Oh, listen, it's all right, we can go into the UEFA Cup, maybe get to the final," you're like, "Fuck off, mate. We've just been fucking packed out the Champions. We've just missed the chance to get into the Champions League." So again, no taking anything away from the Seville run. It was fantastic. It was historical, but it was built on failure.
So see if somebody says to you now, Going into next season, Brendan Rodgers will finish third in the Champions League group, drop into the Europa League and get to the final. No saying they'll win the final, no saying they'll lose the final, but get to the final. Would you then, using that logic, say, no, I'll take my chance at the Champions League?
Probably no, because it's a doubling, isn't it? So
I will. Well, fair enough.
no, but listen, apart from that hypotheticalness, see if you were to turn around and say to me, right, guarantee Celtic need to lose to get to there. But I wouldn't take a fuck to yourself, mate.
I know, 100%. I get that. Obviously, nobody's going to be coming out of the Ball game going, fucking brilliant UEFA Cup final. UEFA Cup. Of course, that's not going to happen, but obviously, benefit of hindsight, and obviously, as time goes on, if I can sign up to that 100 times out of 100.
No, I know, as I say, I'm happy with the way it worked out, but at the time, I certainly wasn't happy. I was gutted that we never got the Champions League. But listen, sometimes I think fate is a thing. I think it's an actual factor in life. It just happened. It ended up as part of your history. It ended up as one of our most successful periods, one of the most memorable times for many a Celtic generation, even though we get beat in the final, unfortunately. So many great memories were built on it. But again, it all came from failure. So it's a kind of yin and yang type thing.
It's controversial.
But there's Mr. Floyd. Champions League knockout all day.
No, my wee controversial one, I'd say I think Ryan Christie was very, very underrated at Celtic, and I wish he was still here.
And on that note, good night.
These are all, man, but I think it would have been Brendan Rodgers that brought him into the team, wasn't it? That was the game at Murrayfield and things like that. That was his kind of breakthrough. Would that have been Rodgers? It would have been, wasn't it? Aye, it would have been. It was.
No, that was that no Dyer?
No, fuck it. Wouldn't it have been Ronnie Dyer at Murrayfield? No, sorry. The Hearts game in the Cup at Murrayfield, no the Champions League qualifiers. Right. When he brought him in, he played a kind of deeper role. And I thought he was excellent. He'd run about all day. It was like another Dyson Maida. And then when Lennon came in, he was obviously telling him to shoot in sight. And obviously what happened. Fucking out the bar out of the stadium every shot. But no, I thought I liked him in that deeper role. I thought he was excellent. And I wish he was still here, to be honest, to play that deeper role. No, the shooting sight shite that we ended up with.
Yeah, here's a question for you. Is Martin O'Neill at fault for not securing a good enough goalkeeper for our season that we went to Seville? There was rumours. Shaka Hislop came out in an interview. This was back in 2002. Shaka Hislop's goalkeeping coach joined Celtic, and he said, "Why don't you come to Celtic?" Because he said that Martin's interested in taking you. But at that point, in Shaka's interview, he said that Martin got distracted with the Leeds were courting Martin O'Neill at that point, and he got distracted with that, and he never followed up on Shaka Hislop, who he was a half-decent goalkeeper at that time in his career. So we had Rab Douglas, and we went to Seville, and he's been made a scapegoat to an extent, but we had a good outfield level of player, but Rab Douglas, we signed him for Dundee. Whether you think he was a good goalkeeper or a bad goalkeeper or an even worse goalkeeper, is it Martin O'Neill's fault that we didn't do better because we never bought decent goalkeeper?
Yes, but what I will say is that Rab Douglas had a great run in the UEFA Cup. I think a lot of people forget that because of the final. You probably could say that he could have done better for the goal. You probably could say that they were getting a lot more on target. A lot more opportunities, because Bobo Baldi gets sent off. So there's two people that could potentially get the blame there. But if you look at his goalkeeping signings, Hodgson, Rab Douglas was good to an extent. He'd done a job. He was an upgrade on Johnny Gould. But then if you look at after that, you're talking Magnus Hedman.
Dimitri Karin, was that under him?
Who?
Dimitri Karin, was that under?
No, that was John Barnes.
Sanchez Broto as well. He probably
Sanchez Broto was one of the best goalkeepers I've seen at Celtic.
He
Honestly,
never get a game.
no, he played about maybe 5, 6, 7 games in a row, and one of the games was at Dunfermline. I'm sure it might have been. It was either Dunfermline or Livingston, but Jim Leachman was the manager. I can't remember who it was. I know we got Sanchez brought off Livingston. He was a kind of short-term contract signing towards the end of the season. But my God, see when you speak about a goalkeeper being a cat, Sanchez brought always a cat. He saved some of the saves. He was pulling off was superb, and I don't remember him being that tall. But no, I would have loved us to sign him. And again, penny pinching. I think he asked for $4,000 a week or something, and they were only giving him fucking 2. So he's like, no, fuck off. And ended up in who was it? It was like Tenerife or something in Spain. But no, he was a great wee keeper. I think if we'd have signed him, he would have been very well liked. But somebody mentioned a good comment there. Woodsy always mentions a good comment. Big Hartson being injured lost us Seville. 100% agree with that. He was magnificent in that full run up, as was the full team. But hey ho.
Right, okay, well, that's enough unpopular Celtic opinions without dividing the viewers too much to unsubscribe. By the way, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe. We really love that shit. And hit a like button as well. By the way, we've actually got an Australian on trial. Do you remember you used to hear about that all the time? We've got this player and that player on trial. We've got some Australian centre-back on trial. I think he was born in 2005, which means he's fucking young. No idea if he's any good, but we'll find out. Now, we are playing a Portuguese team tomorrow, I think. Porto Monense. We're also playing them again a few days later, apparently. Both of these fixtures are going to be behind closed doors. They will not be televised, unfortunately. So I guess the first televised game will be against Ange's old team, Yokohama Marinos, once we set foot in Japan. So that'll be something to look forward to. If we can go over the top, dissecting the post-match game, in these friendlies. People fucking lose their shit in friendlies, don't they? Like,
I actually think the B team's playing Sligo Rovers tonight. I think it's starting at 7. If anybody wants to try and catch the end of that, but I'm sure it's tonight.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we're going to wrap it up. Yeah. I'm checking the BBC here. I take it you're checking your Twitter.
Mr. Woods, what do you mean? There you are. Plunge says that the Australian boy is playing for the B team, so we're playing there. Oh, you! Don't you dare speak ill of Sanchez. Great keeper. Fantastic.
Did you actually say that, Paddy? A cross between Schmeichel and Buffon?
No.
No, okay.
No, it was more like a Lev Yashin and Bruce Grobbler.
Match fixing, though.
Hey, Chinese. Fucking stop speaking ill of one of my favourite other goalkeepers. Enough.
Grobbler, aye.
No, Proto.
All right. Grobbler was a scary dude, man, with that tash. Do you mind he almost leathered Steve McManaman on the pitch one time. Right, anyway, guys.
The first African to play in the Premier League as well.
Was he for Zambia?
Zimbabwe.
I think you're right. Aye. More like a mixture of a Danish pastry and a buffoon.
Red.
There you go, mate.
Don't start me, Red. Don't get me going.
You know what Paddy's capable of, mate?
You won't like me when I'm angry.
I thought you were just going to ban him.
Mate, that's below the belt.
Sorry, we'll get back to the tennis puns anyway.
Wait a minute, I forgot. I've got a present for you, by the way. You wee dick.
Right. Going to wrap things up for this evening, but thank you very much for tuning in. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already, and also please subscribe. We will be back next Tuesday for hopefully there'll be some news. And as we said at the start of the show, if there's no news from Celtic, then surely there'll be some news from the BBC by next Tuesday. Anyway, from the three of us, hope you have all had a good evening. We'll see you next week. Catches. Good night.
Remember, don't plug your TV licence. Fuck the BBC.